So today, our tasks are the following. It's to clarify the meaning of mindset so that we know what it is that we will be nurturing. And it's also to appreciate, hopefully, the meaning and value of resilience. So what is resilience and how should we understand that if we are to be the nurturers of resilient mindsets? And then finally, to find ways to nurture resilient mindsets. These resilient mindsets should really start with ourselves, right? We can only nurture our students if we ourselves have these mindsets of resilience, because how can we give something we don't have? How can we demonstrate something we are not? So what is mindset? So one definition that is that it is a set of beliefs that shape how you make sense of the world and of yourself. Another way is to look at it as the way that people think about their abilities and talents. There are usually two mindsets about these. So they're called the fixed mindset or the growth mindset. Fixed means it's something given and you cannot do anything about it. You were born with it and it's fixed, it's permanent. But the other one is that it's a growth mindset because that talent or ability is something you can develop, you can sharpen, you can improve, or you can gain if you don't seem to have it yet. The mindset as beliefs, absolutist, relativist, and evaluativist. When a person is an absolutist, that person would hold on to a belief that only one view is true or correct, would look at authority as very important. In the old traditional way of thinking, the teacher is always right. The teacher is the one who knows the truth. The teacher is the expert. The teacher is the wise person. So an absolutist will only listen to that teacher. There is little regard for evidence or argument. So an absolutist doesn't need proofs. And then there's also no need to be critical. In the relativist view, all views are equally right. Knowledge is only a matter of opinion. Then there is an uncritical disregard of evidence or argument. There's no need for you to give me evidence or proof. I can accept that that's where you are coming from and that's why you have that view. I also have my view. So let's just accept that we have different views. The evaluativist position is that there is a tentative commitment to the best available view. So there are many views, but an evaluativist would evaluate and then decide this is a better view. So there is also critical openness to authority. So authority is accepted here with critical openness. So there is critical regard of evidence and argument. So it's better to have, as much as possible, an evaluativist position as teachers. We should be able to weigh things and help our students to discern which is a better view, which is a more suitable position, and therefore that will hopefully enable them to make the proper decisions on life's dilemmas. One perspective that we used to know is that a person is born like an empty vessel. This particular theory means that because the child is like an empty vessel, then it's the role of the teacher to write on and fill up this empty vessel. This kind of theory has been refuted because a child actually is not empty. Even while still in the mother's womb, a child, a fetus already can learn things like how the mother loves or cares for him or her. So there is not really an empty mind or an empty vessel. For some time, it was also the belief, an absolutist belief in the past, that a woman cannot be a leader because only men are born to be leaders and a woman can only be a follower. So this was an absolutist idea in the olden days, in the olden times. And we see it also reflected in many religious texts, including the Bible for the Christians. There are teachings there about that. And so for a long time, women were not considered as capable to become leaders. But that has been refuted with feminism, the feminist movement. So this has also been refuted, that men and women are capable for exactly the same things. And therefore, we should not discriminate one against the other. So these are the kind of examples that you can think of. What is a claim in your discipline that has been made absolute, but actually has become irrelevant because recently it has been refuted. It has been refuted by other disciplines, by new discoveries in science and social science, and therefore, for the relativist, that is a welcome thing, but even more so for the evaluativist, that we really need to evaluate, we really need to discern, we really need to compare things before we decide. Which of these three would actually be best to apply to our teaching practice? So the best one is evaluative, right? Yeah. So that is also how we want our students to think. Earlier, we looked at the mindset as a set of beliefs. Now, it's more of how we look at abilities and talents. Because many times, when students come to us, we tend to have this idea that, oh, we have talented students or bright students versus weak students, students who are in need of help. And sometimes how we talk to them, because of that view, how we talk to them can actually affect how they perform. Before we go to analyzing the video, I want to look at our poll results. So the highest answer is number 4. You can learn new things and improve your intelligence. And followed by number 6, studying, working hard, practicing new skills are ways to develop new talents and abilities. And then followed by number 3, people are capable of changing who they are. And then the one with 3%, there isn't much you can do to improve your abilities and personality. There's a 3% there. But the others, number 1 and number 5, one is born with a certain intelligence which cannot be changed. People either have particular talents or they don't. They're 0. Very interesting, which means that our educators are with growth mindsets, because number 3, number 4, and number 6 reflect the growth mindsets, whereas number 1, number 2, and number 5 reflect the fixed mindsets. So this fixed mindset and growth mindset video that we just watched a few minutes ago, I tried to summarize and put here so that we can be helped in our remembering the keywords and phrases or ideas. So the fixed mindset includes the thinking that abilities are innate. We're born with them and they are unchangeable. And failure is permanent. So a person who fails is like marked already. That's the fixed mindset. So one failure and it's like, oh, I will always fail, that kind of feeling. Then there is the taking of critical feedback as a personal attack. So if a boss, for example, will will give a strong and especially a negative feedback, or a feedback that points out a weakness, then that person with a fixed mindset will think of it as a personal attack and will immediately feel bad. And then more likely to choose easier tasks and put minimal effort. And that means also putting in only a very small effort. Likely to give up when faced with an obstacle. So any problem that comes his or her way, that person would like to give up immediately. And then the focus on measurable accomplishments. In the case of students, that will be the grades. In the case of maybe people who are already working, that can be promotion, salary increase, something like that. So something measurable. That's the kind of thinking of a fixed mindset. Then less likely to take creative risks because just wanting something easy. So that's fixed mindset. Whereas growth mindset is the abilities, actually, the talents can be improved through constant practice. And then failure is a chance to learn. Fail, F-A-I-L, means first attempt in learning. So it's not bad to fail. Then the critical feedback is not seen as personal attack, but as a chance to improve. So even though a feedback may sound strong and negative, but it's taken as a chance to improve, to do better. And then this person with a growth mindset would more likely embrace challenging tasks and work hard to improve. So it's not enough to take something simple. I want something challenging. I want something to help me improve better, do much better. And then this growth mindset person would also view obstacles as a chance to experiment and solve problems. Instead of looking for measurable accomplishments, the person with a growth mindset would look at the whole journey of continual or continuous improvement. And then finally, this person would also like to take creative risks because those are ways to innovate and improve. We go to the word resilience. Resilience is both the process and the outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. That's an official definition from the American Psychological Association. So resilience is both the process and the outcome, meaning the result. The process meaning is something you go through. It's something that you have to experience. And then it can also be the result of being able to adjust, to adapt to difficult or challenging life experiences. Some may call that stress or stressors. Some may call them crises or change. For example, the pandemic is like a crisis that caused a lot of changes, disruptions in our life. Or your military coup is also another experience that brought about a lot of changes for you. And having to deal with that mentally, emotionally, behaviorally, that is part of resilience. Because we have to wrestle with it in our own minds, right? And in how we behave and even in how we feel, so that we are not overcome by the trauma, the feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. So resilience is to be able to adjust, to adapt, and to cope with these changes, these disruptions, these crises. Those of you in the natural sciences must have heard of that theory, survival of the fittest. But according to Darwin, it's not really the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, especially among human beings, but the one that is most responsive to change. And that is resilience. Key factors that will contribute to how well people adapt to crises or adversities, disruptions, and changes are these: the ways in which they view and engage with the world. And that's why I gave you the three words, the absolutist, relativist, evaluativist, because those are how we view the world and how we engage with the world. Then the availability and quality of social resources. That means the people who provide support, or organizations that provide support, or it can be even our religions, our communities of faith. Whatever provides that very important and needed support, that also counts for a big help in terms of people adapting to crises or adversities, and therefore having the resilient mindsets. And finally, it's like the other sign that will show how resilient you are or we are would be having specific coping strategies. And so what are those strategies? So I'll just very quickly share a few more thoughts. Now, this time I want to share lessons from people with disability. Why? Because people with disability have to adjust to a lot of changes, right? When an accident happens and they become disabled, they are the most vulnerable people who have to make adaptations very quickly. So they're a good example of resilience, actually. And this was brought up in a webinar, which I really appreciated. So there are three lessons from people with disability. The first lesson is choose a responsive attitude, not a reactive attitude. Reactive means you just react right away. Oh, I'm angry. I'm angry with the world. I'm angry with whoever caused this coup d'etat, or this, who caused this COVID-19 virus, who created this. So a lot of reaction like that does not really help. That does not represent resilience. So it should be responsive attitude, not reactive. Responsive means there's responsibility when you even make your reaction to something. So what that includes would be this: you name the crisis, you accept that it is there. This virus is here. So some people try to deny it, or they trivialize it. They make it appear like it is small, and then they even blame others for the cause of it. Now, these are not helpful ways of responding. So responsive attitude would be doing introspection, which is like a self-analysis. And by self-analysis, it would be looking at what is within your control and what is beyond your control. Because the pandemic is beyond our control, right? Or the coup d'etat is beyond your control. But what is within your control is how you respond to it. Introspection is a very deep reflection, and also your self-analysis of what is beyond your control versus what is within your control. And of course, what we can work on is what is within our control. So that's how the disabled people do it. The second one is employ quick adaptation. Very quickly, you have to adjust. And that means adapting to changing circumstances. It means, will I be on wheelchair now because my legs are broken? Will I be will I need to learn the braille because my eyesight is affected? So these are adapting to changing circumstances, and then letting go of what makes you comfortable. So I used to be comfortable when I was not disabled, but now I have to get used to being less comfortable. So that's part of resilience, accepting that, admitting that. So letting go of what made you comfortable in order to adjust to the present circumstances. Incorporating new behaviors, because you cannot act the way you did. You cannot behave the way you did. And then it also helps if you recall past experiences and strategies that were used. So during this COVID pandemic, for example, a lot of our people tried to look back. What happened during the epidemics many years ago? What did people do? And so they realized that yes, isolation is one way, wearing masks is one way, staying, in remote places is one way. So instead of complaining about all these restrictions made by the health department or the government, we have to admit that actually these were also strategies used by people in the past. And so we can also learn from those experiences of people in the past. And then finally, the third step, third lesson from people with disability is do creative innovation. That means taking up new processes, new ways of doing things. Yeah, if it is Braille, then I have to learn Braille. If I have to, if I was an artist, but now my hands are broken and I cannot draw art, some people actually learn to paint with, using their lips, their mouth. So these are new ways of doing things, and which shows resilience. Finding creative ways and solutions. Yes, you have to think of something really creative, and that really depends on your mindset of creativity. Using or building on existing resources. So even to think of what people did in the past, that is looking at past resources, right? Or existing resources, but then also find other or new resources. So for today, for example, there can be more resources with the digital, technology. There can be newer ways of dealing with the loss of some limbs and abilities, and therefore adjusting in new ways through the use of technology. So these are things just like in broad strokes, how we can think of responding or adapting to changes, disruptions, and its lessons from people with disability. Because in a way, during the COVID pandemic, we were all disabled, right? We couldn't fly. I couldn't go to Myanmar to be with you. And we just couldn't do things together anymore. And so we have been disabled. So I think it's a good way to learn from people with disability. So with that, I have these few photos also to show you how a young student from Malaysia, she comes from the indigenous community in Sabah. And when the Malaysian universities were having their national exams, she was back in her village, which had no connectivity at all. And so in order to sit for her exams, which were done online, she had to climb a tree, which was on top of the hill. So she had to look for that tree on top of the hill and built a little, look at how she did it with the mosquito net, because she had to stay there for 24 hours to sit for the exams, because otherwise she would miss the opportunity to take the exams. So this is a young woman with a lot of resilience, yeah, and a lot of creativity, really finding ways to make do with what she had in order to take her exam. So, and I will end with this like two quotes, or one is from the Buddhist tradition. It is not impermanence that makes us suffer. What makes us suffer is wanting things to be permanent when they are not. And when we accept that, then we can be more resilient, right? Because it is when we want things to be permanent that we will not be resilient, because we will resist change. And then there is this prayer from the Christian tradition, which if you can read with me, we can say it as our closing prayer. That we say, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.